thing as well, the other thing is I'm always tending for the 55. And one of the things I've really come to learn. So we left off with a really amazing array of N's. So here are some O's to start us off. Obviously, again, in a pencil, don't forget to mark off 3 and skip 2. Now, this is where things really start to sort of become a little bit more detailed. I've found that there's a tendency to go up and over and back and down. So we go up and over, back and down and out. So a little bit sloppy, sorry about that. So let's, so what I found was very helpful was the O's in the 18th century tend to be more a wider sort of elliptical shape. And narrower here, but they come back in on themselves. Maybe the problem with this is it's too tall. Ah, that's better. So this can vary in height, so it can be a little bit lower. Really very, very dramatically different letters. And this bald serif joining this lead-in stroke. Really quite a lot of balance and sort of structured balance. Sometimes that lead-in ligature is actually higher. So you end up with a sort of. So if you look at the axis of this ellipse, it is about here. And this one is much more circular. Again, something that I noticed a lot of the English roundhand letters have. They're much more circular than they are round. Let's do that again. Maybe I'll try and shut up and concentrate on it. So let's look at these with some ink. And let's try the narrower one. Very much like that S. So again, you know, one of the problems with this kind of Q is the tendency for it to look like a 2. So I really struggled with this shape, especially in this period. And I found that they tend to be rounder and they come in and flatter and they do that kind of thing. Really quite an interesting approach to the structure of this letter. This V fascinated me. I freaked out when I saw this. How beautiful is that? So I'm just going to do. I feel a little bit constrained at the end there. You just do it in a better space here. That's better. Now this can be open or closed. So you get that beautiful reverse comma shape. And this tends to be horizontal. I'm looking at the exemplar, I sort of feel it's much shorter. The other thing that the example that I've discovered has, is it has pressure, release, pressure, release, and down and across, which is really quite fascinating to have, you know, this kind of entasis and then a swelling stroke that matches the opposite of the entasis. So we have pressure, release, pressure. We have release, pressure, release. So where the swell is in the middle here, you have no swell. So you get this really lovely balance. Where are we at? X. Up and over, down and back up and down and out. These exit ligatures are really, really important to pay attention to, because they tend to come out and join a minuscule. The E's are also particularly fascinating in this period. Beautiful, beautiful shape. Of course, my E tends to be this very narrow shape. And the more I do this kind of historical research, the more I'm sort of seeing how my idea of copperplate script is really a much more contemporary version of these English roundhand letters. And that really does show that. One of the more fascinating things that I've been discovering, you know, is this evolution of the script. How beautiful is that? This was a nightmare to do with a pencil, so it's going to be an absolute nightmare with a pen. Ha, lovely. So I sort of screwed that up a little bit. Let me just make this a little bit better. And I've gone taller, but I've left enough space between the baseline and the cap height. So it's a really lovely kind of shape. Now, technically, if I was really going to do this shape properly, what I would have done is this. Turn the page, all of this is wet, and go now. That is amazing. Look at that. So, so beautiful. Of course, they wouldn't have turned the page. So this is where you start having to think, is this an engraver's pattern? Because how did the engraver's line, or the way in which the engraver wrote the script, lead to what you're seeing in the copybook? And how did that differ from what the writing master did? I loved this W. Absolutely loved it. I think one of the things that you always have to one of the things I have always been doing whilst I've been doing this research is I always think about my letters. So I know for me, my W is 55, 50, 55, 50, and possibly a little dollop serif, which I distinguish between a dollop serif and a ball serif. And I always tell my students, stay on the 55 or on the 50. But then you come across something like this, which is clearly a departure from and it's a really swung line. It's not, you know, most people make this line. When I make this line, it's straighter rather than curve. So it's more linear curvy than curvilinear. Then this stroke, which should be on the 55, goes back to that shape that I keep telling people not to do. Don't do the wiggle. But the wiggle seems to be a really big part of 18th century. So these are, what are these? 1737. So 18th century letters. Let's mark that off again. Where are we at? So excited. Right, these A's I have found amazing. So notice the top is a little bit bulbous. Now, some of the varieties are this. This is where you really start to have to pay attention. So that's your 55. So obviously that's a 55 there. I'm going to come in and around and down and out. So this is not on the 55, and also it goes back to the use of these plain-sided figures, where my copperplate script is based on a parallelogram. These 18th century letters seem to really be dictated by triangles more than anything else. This is another variant. I love this crossing stroke. Sort of looks like a C and an L. Where are we at? C. I'm saying C. Here's the C. And see that again. So my C is this. And you can clearly see it sitting in that parallelogram, whereas this C is, it's really sort of that. Really quite amazing. I mean, I'm loving this study. Where are we at? F. And of course, the other thing that you have to be really aware of is the height of the letter. I've gone from the 55, I've turned the pen. Now in this F, we have this shape. And then this part of the F is actually different. I'm going to see if I can mimic it. So it's more like a club, sort of like a club ending. It's almost as if they've done. Can I fit it here? No, I can't. It's almost as if they've done this. Oh, playing with the other F. See, now that looks closer to the shape I have on my sheet. But again, you have to think, you know, would they have done something like that? So if you're writing, let's say, fancy. Yeah, I guess you could get, you wouldn't do this. You would do this, and then you would do that. You wouldn't put weight here and here, because it's too different from this or this. So it's always sort of going back to what the original letter looked like. Now, this F came up soon after that one, and I sort of freaked out a little bit. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful, but it looks like an S. And it is not on the 55. The one I have on my sheet is actually a little bit steeper than that. Oh, that's my alarm. So where are we at? We're at this F. Let's just do one more line. The M's I found really fascinating because, you know, when we do an M, we do this. So that's on the 50, this is on the 55, that's on the 50, and this is on the 55. This is one of the M's. And you really get this downward sloping shape, and sometimes you get this. So you get this beautiful branching arch, and then it comes off the 55, because there's a 55, right? So it comes off the 55, and then it has a sort of curvilinear pointed arch. And you get, look, there are those characteristic triangles showing up again. Really, really quite fascinating. Where are we at? L. Stay above the line. So that's your baseline there. Through the line and up. Maybe a little bit higher. N, and again, really, really interesting N, much flatter, much longer, much lower, much more languid. And this is practically upright. I'm right at the edge of the screen, sorry about that. Let's just move up. Let's just move up a little bit more. Where are we at? L. So this is my L, and my L lines up a little bit further ahead, lines up in this parallelogram. Now this L, now notice my nib is here. This L, the nib is here. So my nib is there. Absolutely stunning, stunning. I've made this a little bit too bulbous. And I didn't put the weight of it. That looks more like it. And I'll drop that S in as well that came with this L, which sort of looks like an Italian letter. Right, I'm going to stop there because I don't want to start the next line, because on my sheet it's actually a new line. So that's my sheet there. So I've just gone up to here. So we will start back here in the next post. So thanks very much. I hope you're finding this as fascinating as I'm finding it, sharing it with you. I only did these in pencil, so doing all of this with a nib is really new and exciting territory for me. So thanks very much, and I'll see you soon. So I know for me, my W is 55, 50, 55, 50,